friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Just Add Glitter, Perfectly Wicked, and Christmas Dreams. So I've stamped the images I'll be using on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm starting out with my furniture, and I'm doing the legs of the two chairs, the table, and the shelf, all in the same pale brown tones. I chose E50, E51, and E53 for those. And because they're all fairly small, I'm just coloring them all at the same time so I don't have to keep swapping between the markers. So I started with the E53 for the shadows, and then pulled that out with E51 for the mid-tone, and then used E50 for the highlight. Now there wasn't enough contrast for me on those, so I did decide to darken that up a little bit with E55. So I'm going to do a second layer on everything and add that E55 in the mix as my darkest. And I especially wanted to add that on the chair legs and the table legs, you know, where they would be really shadowed, but I did also add a little bit to the edges of the table and to the shelf. So I blended that out with the E53. And then I'm going to finish with the E51 on everything except for the table. So everything will be a little bit darker. Then I'm going to grab E59 and just do the bristles of my paintbrush with that, just all one color since it was really small. And then I'm going to do my mice using W00, E70, and E71. I recently used this combo for some mice on my Absolutely Awesome card, and I really liked how they turned out, so I wanted to try it again. So I'm starting with the E71 and laying in some shadows down the back of their body. That way their face will stay nice and highlighted so you can really make out their features. So I'm blending the E70 forward and filling in their little arms with that, but leaving some white space on the face and also the feet for that W00. Then I'll bring in C3 and C5 to do the ferrule on my paintbrush and the metal part of my scissors. Just starting with the C5, blending out with the C3, and then I'm also going to do the sides of my ink pads, just bringing the C5 in from both sides and filling in with the C3. And now that I've got most of my neutral stuff taken care of, or all of it, I'm going to start adding in some color. So this is going to be a rainbow themed card, and the first combo that I'm going to add in is some hot pinks. I'm using RV10, RV11, RV13, RV14, and RV17. So for the first paint bottle, I'm going to use the darkest three shades. And then for the label, I'm going to use the lightest three shades. So the RV13 is going to be the lightest of the dark combo and the darkest of the light combo. I'm also going to do one of the ink pads in this combo with the same marker tones. And then I'm going to switch to a lighter combo, do the RV13, RV11, and RV10 for the mouse's apron. So using those lightest three shades, and then also using just the RV10 and RV11 to do the ears and the rosy cheeks and the noses of the mice. Next up is going to be some orange tones. So I pulled out YR04, YR07, and YR09. And I accidentally started with the YR07, so I had to go back and add in the YR09 first, and then blend across with the YR07, and then use the YR04. And then I'm going to also do the cap of the glue bottle. I just used the YR09 and the YR04 for that because it was so tiny. And then for the label, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with my lightest shade, the YR04 for the bottle. That's going to become my darkest, and then I added in YR01 and YR02. And I'm also going to do one of the pieces of paper here with the lightest 3 shades there as well. So I can have those little pops of color here and there on the card. Then I'm going to switch to some yellows, and I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17. And I pulled in Y11 to use on the label. So using the darkest 3 shades for the bottle, just like before. And then for the label, I'm using the Y13 and blending across with the Y11 and just adding an extra layer of that Y13 to kind of give it a bit more depth on the left-hand side there. And then I'm going to take one of these folded cards and color that in with the Y15, Y13, and Y11 as well. And I'll also use those 3 lightest shades to do the label on the bottle of glue, just keeping the shadows consistent on the left and the highlight on the right. Then I'm going to switch to a green combo. I'm using YG01, YG03, YG05, YG07, and YG09. And for the green bottle, again, using those darkest 3 shades. So starting with the YG09, blending across with the YG07, and finishing with the YG05, and then using that YG05 as the darkest for the label, blending out with the YG03 and the YG01. And I'm also going to do another piece of cardstock or paper that's going to be kind of scattered throughout my scene using those lightest 3 shades. And I'm going to color the handle of the scissors with the darkest 3 shades. So once again, I'll have like little pops in all the different variations of those colors throughout the scene. Then I'm going to do a blue combo. I'm doing B21, B23, B24, B26, and B29. So just like with the other bottles, I'm going to use the darkest 3 shades for the actual bottle and then the lightest 3 shades for the label. And then I will hop over and use those darkest 3 shades again on the other ink pad. And I'm putting the shadows on both the left and the right for that, and then blending toward the center. So I use the B29, then the B26, and then the B24 over the word ink, so it's a little bit lighter there so you can see it more clearly. And then I'll use the lighter combo with the B24 and then the B23 and the B21 for another sheet of cardstock. And I'm also going to do the handle of the paintbrush with the B23 and the B21. Next up is some purples, and I went with VO1, VO4, VO5, VO6, and VO9. So that VO9 is quite dark, but once you blend it with the VO6, it lightens it up quite a bit. So I use those darkest 3 shades for the bottle, and then I'm using the lightest 3 shades for the label again. And it worked fairly well on the label, but when I go to do one of these little cards with that same combo, the lightest 3 shades, the VO1 has a lot of colorless blender in it, so it really pushes the color back. So I did have to go back in and do a second layer and kind of even out that blending a bit and just use a very tiny amount of that VO1 at the bottom. Then I'll switch back to the darker purple combo, the VO9, VO6, and VO5, and do the other mouse's apron. And again, just shading them the same way that I did their bodies with the shadow on the back and then the highlight on the front. Since I still had a few images to color, I decided to add in some red. So I pulled out R22, R24, and R29. And I'm going to do the paint on the end of the paintbrush, also another piece of cardstock, and the carpet that is from Christmas Dreams, but I thought it would look cute underneath the craft table and just kind of center my scene a little bit. So I started with the R29, blended out with the R24, and then used the R22 for the center highlight. And I'm just going to fill that all in completely and make sure everything is blended nicely. And then I still needed one more combo for the chairs and the glue and the caps of the paint bottles. So I pulled out BG10, BG11, and BG13. I'm going to use all three shades on the chairs. They're pretty skinny, so you could probably get away with 2 if you wanted to, but I got all 3 on there. And then I'm also going to use the BG11 and the BG10 on the glue bottle since it's a little bit wider, but just the BG10 on the paint caps. And then I'll trim these images out with their coordinating dies. Next, I'm going to pull out some pattern paper from the Flower Market 6x6. I want to use this gray floral print. And then I also need to pull out a whole bunch of cardstocks. I'm doing raspberry, barn red, fake tan, sticky note, cilantro, peacock, blue jay, and sugar plum. And I'm going to die cut each one of these using a letter from Finley's ABCs to spell out the word sparkles. So I'm going to do one letter out of each color, and then the S I will do both out of the pink and the purple. For the rest of my sentiment, I'm using a sentiment from Just Add Glitter, but I am selectively masking off the word sparkles with a little piece of Post-it tape. So I'm just stamping out Hope Your Day with jet black ink. And then I will set that aside, and in the meantime I will stamp on the inside of my card. My card is made out of guava cardstock, and I'm going to stamp with chili pepper ink. And then I'm going to stamp out another sentiment that says, when in doubt, just add glitter, and a few more of those little crafty icons. Stamp that down twice to make sure it was nice and bold, and then I'm going to trim down those pattern papers with the large stitched rectangle stackables, actually just one piece of pattern paper and then one piece of white wood grain cardstock. So I'm going to glue the gray print to completely cover the card. So I'm just making sure that that lines up flush with the 4 corners. And then I will add the wood grain textured piece to the bottom to be my floor. And I also trimmed down just a plain white piece of cardstock that's going to be my baseboard. So I'm going to glue that over the seam between the pattern paper and that wood grain textured cardstock. And then I will grab my cutter bee scissors and just trim off the excess there. So it's a perfect fit. Then I'm going to bring in my images so I can start setting this cute little scene. I'm going to begin with the little rug, which is going to sit under the table. So just want to make sure that that is on there nice and straight. And then I can add the table right over top. And I love how that fine tip on that glue just gets right in all those little areas on these delicate die cuts. So I've got my table. Next I'm going to grab my 2 chairs and I'm going to place those on either side, and I'm going to push them back just a little bit so I have room to add my mice sitting on top of them without making them look like they're too close to the table and kind of crowded in. So just making sure that I am using up the space on either side of that table so it doesn't end up looking too empty on the edges either. So once I have my chairs situated, I will grab the mice and put them in their little seats so they can be having their little crafty session. I'm doing the mouse with the pink apron on the right hand side and the mouse with the purple apron on the left. Once I have them situated, I can add the shelf from Perfectly Wicked, and I want to place that just above their heads so that they can have all their little crafty products in reach. I know that's how I like to organize my craft room. I like to have all of the products that I use a lot right where I can grab them and where I can see them and remember what I have. So next I'm going to start adding in the little craft supplies here and there, and I'm trying to stagger them around the room and place them like on the opposite places from where the paint bottles are going to go. So the paint bottles on the shelf are going to go in rainbow order. So I'm kind of reversing the way that everything is laid out down below it, just to kind of pull your eye around the scene. So you can see the red and the orange cardstock are way over on the right hand side of the table, and then the yellow is down below, and then the blue and green are over to the left. So I'm just trying to like mix it up and not have everything in straight order, just to kind of, like I said, pull your eye around the scene, you know, and that way you'll get more visual impact. So I'm going to start adding my bottles to the shelf now, and I'm going to begin with the 2 in the center. Since I have 6 bottles, I'm going to start with the green and the yellow bottles so I can get the spacing on either side of them just right. And after the green bottle, I'm going to add the blue one, and then I'll do the purple one on the very end. So it's not going to have all of the colors that I used on this scene, but definitely enough to give you that look of that rainbow order. So to the left of the yellow bottle, I'll place the orange, and then all the way on the end goes the pink. And I just adjusted those slightly so that they were a little bit more even on the shelf. So I have 3 more images here to place. I'm going to take the purple card that is folded and just stack it on the opposite side from the yellow one to give it a different look. Also placing it all the way on the left as opposed to on the right for the shelf. And then I just stacked the 2 ink pads over on the right to kind of finish off the floor. And then I have my little letters here that I've die cut, so I'm going to lay them all out how I want them to go. It's going to be a tight squeeze here, so I'm definitely going to have to put them in kind of like a wonky order, which I think adds to the fun of this look because it's like they're kind of shaken like a container of sparkles of glitter. So I'm going to lay them all out first and make sure I have my spacing right on the card. And then I'm going to grab my EK Success reverse tweezers to pick them up, just to make it a little less fiddly, and then I can add my glue on the back and place them down and just make sure that they are secure. So I'm just working my way all the way from the left to the right, adhering those letters down with my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. And I'm actually glad that they didn't fit just straight across the card because I want to use these letters to kind of take up some of the space at the top of the card so that it won't be, you know, unbalanced. So I want there to be about the same amount of space from the top of the letters to the top of the card as from the bottom of those little craft supplies to the bottom of the card. So I'm just going to get these last couple of letters on here, and they're not going to be perfectly straight, but like I said, I think the wonky look kind of adds to the whole chaotic scene with all of the craft supplies kind of scattered on the ground, so I don't mind it. And this S ended up being a little bit lower than the other S, which ended up being fine because I'm going to add this little banner up at the top left, which will help balance the left side out. So I just die cut that using one of the Everyday Sentiment banners, and I'm going to attach that, and then I will open up the card and trim off the excess that is hanging off the side using my Cutter Bee scissors. And then all that's left is to add a bit of glitter because I can't have a sentiment that says hope your day sparkles without some sparkle. So I'm taking my favorite Stardust Stickles and just coating about the bottom third of each of the letter with that. And my bottle did end up getting clogged on me a couple of times. So I just used the pin from my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue to kind of get that flowing again. I don't know what's been going on with this bottle. I never have had issues with any other bottle before having this problem, but anyway, no big deal. Easy enough to clean out quickly. So I'm just gonna coat all of the letters in sparkles, and then I'm also going to add just a line of glitter down the left hand side of each of the paint bottles, and I will also add a little bit of glitter to the tip of the paintbrush and to the two standing folded cards, so the yellow and the purple. And just like the letters, I'm not going to cover them completely, just add enough there to give them a bit of an accent. And that is going to finish off this card. So I am going to lift that up to the camera so you can see how it catches the light, see all of that detail, and then I'll give you another peek at the inside as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. All of the products that I used today will be listed and linked in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I so appreciate it, and I hope you had a good time. I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.